Hi, this is Catherine Morgan from Point A to Point B Transitions. I'm also the editor of Carol Roth's blog, Business Unplugged. And today I am talking with my friend, Tom Rosenak. I've known Tom for a long time, I think 6 or 7 years at this point. And we're going to talk about something that I haven't heard a lot of people discuss. But first, I'm going to let Tom tell you a little bit about his background. Hi, Tom.
Well, good morning, Catherine. Thanks so much for inviting me to this conversation. And I guess the way to talk about my background is to say that I've been a personal development junkie since the mid 80s, early 90s especially, and looking for these gems because the track that was laid out for me, you go to school, you get the degree, then you get to be a partner in a law firm, then you get married, then you get divorced.
Right.
It just didn't quite work for me. So I was looking for something. Yeah, so I don't know what the normal track is, but the normal track didn't work. And the company is called Diamond Mind Enterprises because one of my favorite stories I ran across, the late, great Earl Nightingale told the Acres of Diamond story. And the idea is that we search for greener pastures out there somewhere, and we don't develop our inner resources. So that's the springboard for my company, looking for ways to help people connect to the diamonds within and express them uniquely in the world.
Great. So as a full disclosure, I want to say, and thank you once again for coaching me on giving my TEDx talk. I had it in my goals for whatever year that was to do a TEDx talk, and how I got the opportunity was utterly and completely random, but I got the opportunity and I jumped on it and I created a talk, and then I knew it was good, but I wanted it to be as good as it could be. And you were kind enough to coach me on my presentation, and we did some video, and you just finessed one or two places that really made it pop. Thank you.
You're welcome. I enjoyed the process. It's fun working with you. You are brilliant.
Aw. But after I gave my talk and I came off the stage and people were clapping, and a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in 20 years happened to be in the audience, and she said, "That was beyond excellent," which I think is kind of a stellar review. I didn't feel that way. I felt completely defeated, deflated. I wanted to curl up in the back seat of my Volkswagen Golf in the fetal position. I just completely lost it. And I thought that was, I was the first speaker, so I had to stick around for all the rest of the speakers and smile and talk and stuff. And it was brutal. And I thought that was an unusual response, and got very much into self-judgment. And I actually called a therapist friend of mine who's also a public speaker, because I'm like, I got to fix this right now, or I'm going to be the person who got thrown off the horse and never gets back on the horse. So I did an intervention with a night owl therapist friend. He was super helpful, told me I wasn't crazy. But then you and I had a debrief afterwards. You watched the video. You were very kind in your evaluation of it. And then you got this look on your face and you're like, "Oh my God, Catherine, I totally failed you. I forgot to tell you that winning often feels a lot like losing."
So true. So true. So let me ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
What did you expect that TED Talk to do for you?
I expected to walk off that stage like I was queen of the world. I expected to feel amazing, fulfilled, checking some giant check off my to-do list. I mean, I expected joy.
Yeah, joy. And you expected sustainable joy. And therein is the lie. You
I expected
cannot.
momentary joy. I didn't expect meltdown. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So you put a lot of effort into preparing, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, you poured your heart into it. You invested everything you had in doing the best you could do.
Yep.
And then it was done. And you were waiting for something that doesn't exist.
Clearly.
So, yeah, and so this is the springboard. This phenomena is the springboard for beyond meaningless goals. Because what we like about goals is they're concrete, they're measurable, they're objective. And the first time I experienced it in 1992, I ran the Chicago Marathon. And it was a metaphor for me because in my life, I had noticed I was a sprinter. I would be 29% of quota, and just about the time they were going to fire me, I'd scramble around the marketplace and find gigs, and then I'd be 120% of quota, and just about the time they took me to the Bulls game to celebrate my achieving quota, I'd be sliding back toward 29. So the marathon was this metaphor. It was long-term. You followed this plan. I didn't really run it. I was at the 11-mile marker when the Kenyan won, but I did finish it. And I thought that when I finished that marathon, I would be just a new man. And what happened was I did get jubilant elation when I crossed the finish line, doing, like the victory sign and all that, and everyone was congratulating me. And then I got pretty depressed. I mean, what do I have to do? Run an Ironman or beat my time by 2 minutes? Big deal. And so I didn't know any of this thing about winning and losing at the time. But then I came across this Boris Becker quote. May I read it?
Please.
And it came from the 1990 issue of a World Tennis magazine, but it's timeless. Here's what Boris Becker, the great tennis player, said. I've always been an outsider. Sports was the only way to be together with the other guys and to feel accepted. I wanted to find love, self-acceptance, and friendship through sports. After tough tournaments, I would frequently go through phases of deep depression. Once you win Wimbledon, the Davis Cup, and Flushing Meadows, what else can you do? I felt I could not go on. So here is a subtle thing I'd like to suggest to you and your listeners, is that the reason you gave that TED Talk was it forced you to dig inside, to bring a better you out, and to express it uniquely in the world. That's a process, not an event. But you need goals. They're like stepping stones to the physical world. We live in time and space. But if you think you're going to get something from the TED Talk, then, and by the way, famous actors go through this, musicians, what's next? You see, the pursuit of happiness is a dead-end street. I heard the Dalai Lama once said, they said, you look so happy. And he said this, he said, I practice happiness. I thought it was a pursuit. Something you get when you get the awards, when you get the applause, and who knows what comes after it. So what I want to encourage you to do, and all of us to keep doing, is to come from the desire of the wish fulfilled and express it into our goals. Do our best, do our TED Talks, knock those things off your bucket list. I wonder if I could speak at Carnegie Hall. Wonderful goal. But if you think that speaking at Carnegie Hall was somehow going to give you this sustainable fulfillment, we have 6,500 years of history to show it never does and it never has. There's nothing out there that you can get that's going to bring you to the person you want to be. Then why pursue the goals? Because it causes you to be a bigger version of yourself. So it's
actually, I want to pull out a couple things you said. So I think you were mentioning the 29% of your sales quota to going, as the deadline approached, you putting pedal to the metal and making your goals. That's the value of having a goal. If you say, hey, I want to, do a TEDx talk, but if you didn't say, I wanted to do a TEDx talk in 2016 or whatever it was, it would just sort of sit there in the ether and maybe never manifest.
Yeah, I got 25 years of that, Catherine. I thought one day at a workshop, they said, put what you'd put on your tombstone. And I said to the facilitator, do you want me to put what I'd like to put on that or what I would if I died today? And I went ahead and did what I would do now. He had potential. I never use the word potential. Who cares if you have unlimited potential? You go to the Jewel Tea store and they say that'll be $49.86. You go, I have potential. Potential is out there somewhere, and goals without a deadline is out there somewhere. So what I'm suggesting we do is we do a dance where we come from the why of our biggest goal, but we still have goals. And so I'm not saying goals are meaningless. I'm saying if you don't bring meaning to the goals, the accomplishment of them are meaningless.
Okay, that's gorgeous. And I quote this Tony Robbins all the time about this. He says progress equals happiness, which dovetails nicely in what you're saying is we need to dig into ourselves. We need to bring our best out into the world. And it's this progress that equals the happiness, not these random markers that we hit.
That's exactly right. But you need the markers. And you get to celebrate, go out to dinner, you gave a TED Talk. But if you think it's going to bring you lifetime happiness, then just don't do anything after your TED Talk and see how happy you'll be. It's not very. So Tony Robbins there is riffing off my favorite definition of success by the late, great Earl Nightingale. He said success is a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So you have a worthy ideal, and that continues. And in there, you will have wins, you will have losses. I do a process in my momentum coaching that takes the lid off people's thinking. It's called winning, losing, and non-winning. And everybody who goes through it says, this takes the sting out of losing. And it's just by defining terms and understanding. And I had years of being a non-winner. A non-winner doesn't play fully to avoid possibility of losing.
Full contact living.
Yeah. It's and the voice of security loves that because it's dangerous out there. And the best way to avoid losing is don't do anything.
And you might fail miserably, and you might make a fool out of yourself, and it could be crushing or humiliating or anything that we as entrepreneurs kind of experience on a daily basis.
Yes, it's an adventure like a roller coaster, and trust is the guardrails. Do you trust yourself that you are truly valuable, whether you win or lose? And if you have that kind of trust, you can afford a bunch of losses. And it's an adventure.
Nice. So it was very comforting to hear that this winning can feel a lot like losing, and then to sort of reach out into the ether and see that other people have felt that. If you were going to tie this up in a bow, how would you like to end this discussion?
Well, I would like to tell the truth about it, which is you feel like losing because you are losing something. Think of the period of time just before your TED Talk. It was just about the only thing in your heart and mind, wasn't it?
Oh, I was like, not, that fully juiced. Like, I know all speakers get a little juiced before they go on stage, even the ones who do it all the time. Because if you're not, you're phoning it in. So I was, it was that laser focus.
It's called engaged.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you were fully engaged. And what you thought you were fully engaged was the TED Talk. But actually, the TED Talk caused you to engage in a person that's always there. She was always there, but she was fully engaged because she had this thing and it had a date and she had to show up and how am I going to look and am I going to be ready and am I going to be prepared? Maybe Tom Rosenak can help me. She was fully engaged in whatever it takes. Then the TED Talk, she's no longer fully engaged. So this is how I tie it in a bow. Continue to find ways to re-engage, reimagine the Catherine that knows she can do, have, be, and become what she sets her heart and mind to. And the goals are stepping stones as you do your dance in the world of gravity, friction, mortality, and all of that. You do your eternal dance in the world of the physical. re-engage, and allow yourself a short period of time to have letdowns. What I'm now realizing is that we go in and out of states. You know, when people meditate, sometimes they're trying to get in a theta state and then they want to stay in a theta state. Well, we aren't designed to be in a theta state all the time. We go in and out of states. And one of the states is called disappointment. Tell the truth about it. But I used to have 3-year periods in that state. How about we have a day? Every time I teach a class, I have a letdown.
Right.
My lovely bride encourages me, why don't you just factor that in? You know, and
yeah, totally. Put it in the calendar. I'm gonna have a non-productive day.
It happens, but 100% of the time. And then I'm bitching about it. You know, I should just be, and it's like, when have you ever done that? Never. So how about we say we go into this state, and that's the thing about recreation. We recreate. But it's not a 10-year period, you know? And so we need to go into states called disappointment. That's why every culture has this period of time called mourning. We don't need Zig Ziglar positive thinking, oh, your mother just died. God causes all things to work together for good, that those are God. Yes, it's true, but it's not the state you're in right now. Weep with those who weep and mourn with those who mourn. But 15 years from now, if you're still saying you lost your mother, we say, you're still here. Breathe. Go give a TED Talk.
Right.
Which doesn't mean you don't care. It means there is a time for everything. Solomon told us 3,000 years ago, and we just don't live that way.
I think that's important. Your personal ebbs and flows, to know just how you're wired, and the fact that our work, our business, our career, our life seems to go in seasons. Oh, this is a season of productivity. Oh, this is a season of falling back and figuring out what I'm going to do next, and, you know, processing and creating fertile soil. I think we can, you know, if we watch this and we manage it appropriately, you know, not spend 3 years cocooning, but, you know, maybe a couple weeks or a couple months is appropriate. You know, just watching the seasonality. We are not robots. We are people.
You just wrapped it in a bow so nicely, and I would like to add one piece to that story, which is we are not designed to do this alone. And the real magic is I can call Catherine on the phone and say, I've had a 2-month pity party. It's time to end it. Yep. And she can set a 20-minute time limit, buy me a coffee, and when I count to 3, say, poor Tom. 1, 2, 3.
Or we can, go ahead.
Indulge me, please.
Or we can go to your co-working space and do a facilitated whiteboard session and figure out if you're doing 20.
I still want you just to indulge me once. When I count to 3, say, poor Tom.
Poor Tom.
Yeah, we need a little bit of that. Then we go to the whiteboard after we had a little poor Tom session. Because sometimes we try to skip right to the whiteboard and we're not fully present. That's the last point I want to make to talk about what you were talking about, is to say, I need a pity party, set a time limit, and then you look me in the eye after you did poor Tom and say, what are you going to do about it? And then you have a suggestion. Why don't we go and do a whiteboard session? Now we are starting to leave that state behind and know that she'll come back and visit, but she's not invited all day, every day.
Fantastic. Tom Rosenak, I am so lucky to have you as my friend. Thank you for sharing your wisdom on this topic. I know that somebody who needs to hear this is going to be like, oh my God, I've been struggling with this. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy conversations with you, Catherine.